Okay, now we go to the number one Steve Gadd fill he ever played. He played this fill, I think, on every record. That one he plays so much. Hi everybody, Ruben van Roon Drum Channel again, once more. Another video, and this is a video about the most famous drum solo on YouTube and on internet. So today's topic is, how can I play Steve Gadd's Aja? Let's start with the drum solo. When Steve Gadd has to play his drum solo, he has to play it over an accent part, and that's really like playing in a big band. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 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 and 2 and 3 and 4 1 and 2 and 3. I think that's what was written out in the chart. He had the whole chart, and Steve Gadd can read as a word I cannot say on YouTube, but he can really read music. And then he has to fill that up with phrasings. Okay, so the 2/4 bar he played, I think, with a lineup for this thing, you know. That's nice. He starts, I think, with the left hand. Okay, so this is the first accent. That's the second part. And then he plays phrasing built out of a thing he does use a lot. That's the inverted double. So that's a double starting 1/16 later. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and. He starts that on beat 2. If you play it slowly, the main figure is, so he starts with 1 and 1. Linear thing, bass, snare, hi-hat. So this figure you can play on many ways. So the accent we have to work on is the end of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a really nice phrasing. And then again we go to accents on the end of the 4, and you play the same phrasing, but you start with the building up to the accent a little bit earlier. So that's our very nice phrasings. It's all phrasings coming out of the jazz music, you know. So he written this thing out. I was thinking about an inverted double. So the sticking is. But he's written it out as 1. So it can both be true. Okay, the next phrasing is again to the accents of the end of the 3 and the 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So it are 2 8 notes and then a 16-note triplet. The crashes are left, right. So that's really a big band kind of thing. And the next phrasing is again going to the end of the 4, and that's a 16-note thing. That's really nice to mix the 16-note and the triplet things together. So that's just a single. And the sticking, I don't know what's written out here. It's so difficult to invent stickings. Here is written out 1 E and a 2. That's the first line of the phrasing. And then the tom going to right. So the phrasing is, in my opinion, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, left. So and the second part of this fill, this famous figure, it's already, this is the figure everybody on YouTube says this is the Aja drum solo figure. But this, on the up close video, you see that this is the Red McHugh figure. So it's so bass, left, left, right, left, right. But instead now of playing the bass as the first note, he plays the right hand as the first note. And this is in the top 5 of the most quoted Steve Gadd fills he uses on record. So it's all a 60-note triplet thing. So that's an amazing quote. So the whole measurement is... Whoa! People, listen up. Drum people on YouTube. It's music. That's really important. This is so music. That's why Steve Gadd is God. Because he's one of the only guys in the pop music and the fusion who really plays out of music. In the jazz world, you have Jack DeJohnette, Tony Williams, Bill Stewart, Brian Blade, a lot of guys. But the other guys in the fusion world play so mathematic. And he plays fusion out of music. No mathematic. There's no mathematic at all. No groupings. It's all phrasings. No groupings. It's all phrasings. Okay, now we go to the number 1 Steve Gadd fill he ever played. He played this fill, I think, on every record. Well, this is the number 1 Steve Gadd fill. That's he plays really on every record, maybe with a 5-stroke. But this one, that one he plays so much. It's the Herta fill. So you play actually a 3-note phrasings. Bass left, right in 60 notes. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1. And now the second note, you make a double, a 30-second note. 1 and a 2 and and now you revoice it on the toms. That's the amazing phase. And I think this fill, with another fill, comes later, is the fill of this solo. This is the fill everybody was thinking of, wow, what in God's name is this guy doing, man? Well, he plays the Herta fill, but then in an amazing phrasing. And watch the touch. There are a lot of videos on my YouTube channel about that's important thing. Really hitting it on the sweet spot in the middle of the drums. And you see always this hitting motion with his left hand. So the articulation is really important and the dynamics. So I think that's the nice thing about the first part. This song has 3 features for Steve Gadd. This is the first feature. It's for me, I cannot play the song along now because YouTube don't like that. So then I get a claim and they put me off YouTube. So really check out take the transcription of the guy I mentioned, listen to the song. There is a great feature on YouTube that you can playback feature on 50% or 75%. And going into this kind of shit, man. Yeah, man. So, Aja is a track on a Steely Dan album, recorded in 1977. Steely Dan was an amazing group. Two founders, Donald Fagen and Walter Becker. A couple of facts are that they had a track, a very symphonic big track. It's with tempo changes, 3/4, 2/4. And it's a little bit like a big band chart. There were a couple of drummers who played on this track already, but they weren't satisfied. So they decided to ask Mr. Steve Gadd. And for Mr. Steve Gadd, I think he just did his job. And I think there are stories about it on YouTube. You can find it out, and the stories are a little bit different. Essence is that there were not many tracks recorded. Some says it was the first track on the tape. But later on, they say there were a couple of tracks, but still it's magic. The drum set, it's also not so clear. Mr. Gadd said himself that he didn't know anymore if he had his own drum set of the drum set of the studio. But what's amazing, this is the pre-Yamaha era. So if it was his own drum set, it was his fiberglass special made drum set, and you can find info on my other videos on YouTube because I rebuilt the same drum set. And I think the snare would be a Superphonic because he always played on the Superphonic and his cymbals were his own cymbals. That's for sure. The other thing I want to tell you about is that this is the most well-known drum solo and tune of Mr. Steve Gadd. But I think because of the people out of the pop and rock music first heard Steve Gadd on this crossover album with a drum solo. The other records he played on it were more groove kind of thing, but this was the first track where you hear a drum solo of Mr. Steve Gadd. Coming out of the pop and the rock world, this is a really weird drum solo, especially with all his phrasings. But coming out of the jazz world, we already knew that Steve Gadd was brilliant and that he had this phrasing thing going on. So if you check out Tom Scott's Apple Juice or that of Chuck Mangione, John Fukumachi All-Star, New York All-Stars with Love Play, you know already that he can play a drum solo like a champion, like a king, like God. The same phrasing concept is already in that kind of drum solos. Or all the jazz records on CTI, he had already played fours and that kind of thing. So we were familiar with his brilliancy already. But for the pop guys, this was so fresh. So that's why I think, because it's such a crossover album, this is his most well-known tune. But please, guys, check all his other 1,000 records he played on and all his 50 drum solos he also played. You see that this is just the tip of the iceberg. So this is a very large tune with Mr. Wayne Shorter on saxophone, among others, who plays from Weather Report in that time, who plays a great saxophone solo. And that's where Steve Gadd got his drum solo also, his drum thing. So the song is a very mellow tune with a very mellow groove. It's a long tune, and that's really strange for pop music. There's written a transcription of this thing, and that's really nice. On internet, on YouTube. The guy's name is Oscar Montanes. There's a link below. You can contact him on YouTube or somewhere. And for a little payment, he gives you an amazing transcription about this thing. A lot of work. So please support him.